Hey guys, today we're going to be creating the emergency call screen in our iOS 8 lock screen recreation in Pixate. This screen is going to sit in a panel off to the left side of our screen, and it's going to have two buttons in it. One is going to cancel, so it's going to move off the screen when we hit that, and it's also going to have another button that'll bring up the medical ID page that we're going to be building later. It's also going to include a collection of assets that are going to use some fade in and fade out timed animations, because on the original iOS lock screen, when you go over to the emergency page, the emergency call text that is written in red starts to fade into different languages. That happens when you bring the screen up. So we're going to be recreating that as well. So let's get started. First, we're going to create a new layer. We're going to make this a shell container. So we're going to make it the size of our screen, 320 by 568. And we're just going to make it transparent. Now we can move this off to the left side of the screen. This is where we're going to be building it. So now we're going to add in our background in our assets. The background is titled EM1. We drag it in and make sure we place it inside of this container. So now that we've got this as a container, we'll just call this emergency call container. So now we've got our background placed properly within the container. We're going to make a way to move this container onto the screen when we hit the emergency call button from the lock screen. So we're going to add a move animation, bring it onto this container. Let's call this move right. It's going to be based off of the emergency button tap. It's going to move with duration to final value. And we're going to move the left side of this so that it repositions to the 0 position over here. We're going to use a ease out quadratic curve, similar to what we've been using before, a duration of 0.04 seconds. So now when we pull this over here, this moves over. So now that we've got this screen able to appear when we hit the emergency button, we need to set a way to get off the screen. So we have this cancel option right here. We're going to create our own button that's going to overlay on top of it, creating a new layer, make it transparent, position it over this cancel text so we can tap on it. We'll rename it to emergency cancel button. Put it inside of our emergency call container, and we're going to add a tap interaction to it. So now when we come onto this container, we're going to make it so that when we tap it, it'll move back left. So we're going to add another move animation. Similar to the one that we just made before, we're going to call this move left. This one's going to be based off of the emergency cancel button's tap with duration to final value. And we're going to move the right side to 0. So this edge, while it's over here, is going to move back left. We're going to use the same animation we've been using, ease out quadratic at 0.4 seconds. So now we've got this over here. If we hit cancel, the panel should move left. Now, in the previous tutorial, we made the slide to unlock container move to the right when we hit the emergency button. You can see the keypad moves over. So we need to create another movement animation to bring it back when we hit the cancel. So on the shell container group, we're going to add a move animation. This is going to be similar to this move right with emergency. This is going to be move left with emergency cancel. This is going to be based off of the emergency cancel button's tap. And we'll move the left. When it's hit, this left side is going to be over here. So we'll just tell it to go back and reposition to 0 so that it comes back to here. We'll use our animation, the ease out quadratic, 0.4 seconds duration. So now when I slide over, bring on this emergency panel, slides up, it slides back into position. Now we're going to have to make this wallpaper blur instantly when we hit this cancel button, because currently the way that it's set up is it only blurs based off of this drag. So that's easy to do. We're going to just add a fade animation to the wallpaper blur layer. Let's call this fade in on emergency cancel. And just like last time, this is going to be based off the emergency cancel button tap. It's going to fade back up to 100%. And we'll use the same conditions that we used before. So a linear 0.2 seconds. So now we've got this. It fades out. We'll fade back in. This is working perfectly. So on the native iOS 8 emergency call screen, this red emergency call text changes to different languages. So what we're going to do is add in our assets of these other languages and make them fade based off of a timed animation. Now, Pixate doesn't have the option to make a continual animation run in the background. So the way we're going to do it is make these layers go from 0 to 100 based off of exponential time, depending on the layer beneath its animation period. And it's going to start when we hit the emergency call button. So in here, in our assets, we have EM2 to EM8. So we're just going to place these in and position them over. That's the wrong one. There you go. Now, these containers, these PNGs are the size of our screen, 320 and 568, but they're transparent PNGs, and the only thing that is visible on them, as you can see, is this text box. So that when we move this, this whole element is going to fade in and out, but it's only going to show through here. So we're going to bring in 2 through 3. And the reason we do that is just it's easier to place them. You don't have to do it this way, but there's not a lot reliant on these, so it's okay to make them the size of the full size of the screen. So bring all these in. Make sure they're all placed properly at -320 to 0. Because we want them to be perfectly aligned. And then we're going to bring them inside of our container. 2, 3. Great. So now within the container, they're all aligned at 0 to 0. So now that we've got all of these placed within our container, we're going to make them fade in when we hit the emergency call button. So we're going to have to start them off at 0% opacity. So we'll go through to each layer, turn them all down. And then we're going to add a fade animation. So let's go to EM2 first. Add a fade. We'll call this fade in. And it's going to be based off of emergency buttons tap. With duration to final value, we're going to do 100%. Linear. And we're going to change this duration, it's going to be a little bit longer, to 0.75 seconds. And it's going to start 2 seconds after we turn it in, because each of one of these languages is going to show for 2 seconds. But since emergency call is this first layer, we don't want it to instantly start. We want it to start 2 seconds after we pull this over. So you can see now, so I hit emergency. After 2 seconds, this layer fades in. We're We're going to do this for each layer, and the timing, the delay timing is going to be dependent on the last layer beneath it. So we're going to be adding 2.75 seconds on top of each layer that we add in. The reason for that is we want to give the 0.75 second animation duration and then allow it to sit on clear for 2 seconds before the layer on top of it starts. So EM3, we're going to add a fade animation to it. Just like before, fade in. It's going to be based off of the emergency button. Tap. Fade to 100%. 7.5. I'm just going to copy this. This is going to be with a 5.5 second delay. 4. We're going to add this in. Fade in. Emergency button tap. Up to 100%. 0.75 second duration. And this is going to be at an 8.25 second delay. Fade in. Emergency button tap. Up to 100%. The duration of this is going to be delayed 11 seconds. 6, fade in. This one's going to be 13.75 second delay. Go to 7, fade in. Emergency button tap. Paste that. And this is going to be a 16.5 second delay. Then our last one, bring this in, fade in. Emergency button tap. Paste that in. This one is going to be a 19.25 second delay. So now if we go over, hit this emergency button, we'll see over the course of almost 20 seconds, these layers start to fade in. Now they're fading on top of each other, so the layers beneath them are not fading out. The way that this cycles through, we're going to make it go all the way from emergency call through these other languages back to emergency call. So we're going to have to fade all of these layers out again. So currently it stops on this last one. So we're going to go back through here. And we're going to make all of them fade out. It's just going to be easier if we make them fade out at the same time. Since they're all stacked, all we have to do is make any layer between the top and the bottom, so between 2 to 7, they can all fade out at the same time after this top one's faded in completely, invisible. And then we will make this top one fade out so that it looks natural, and we'll go back to showing the English on layer 1. So we're going to add fade in, a fade animation. We'll call this fade out. This is also going to be based off emergency buttons tap. So all this is happening once you bring this panel on. I'm going to make it fade to 0. It's going to be no duration. It'll just be instant. And we're just going to choose a time between when EM7 finishes and EM8 starts. So we're going to set this to, let's say 17.5. So it'll be the same for everyone. Same thing for 3. Fade out on emergency button tap, fade to 0, instant 17.5. We're going to do this for every one of them up to 7. $17.5. For 7, we're going to start to delay this a little bit. I'm going to fade out, emergency button tap, go to 0. It'll be instant, but we want this to delay 20 seconds. And similarly for 8, we're going to delay this slightly longer as well. So it's going to be the same animation. Fade out to 0. We're going to make this with the duration, the same duration that it fades in, just so that it doesn't jump and look weird. We're going to do this after 22 seconds. So now if we look, we bring this over, they should almost look like they're properly cycling. Great. So now if we hit the cancel button, since these animations occur when we hit this emergency button, they'll restart. Currently there's no option to just make a continual animation in Pixate. I'm not sure if they're going to make that, but this is just how we get around to it. So the way of resetting it is just hitting cancel and going back and resetting it. So now that we've got that working, there's one more thing that we need to do. In the last tutorial, we didn't add in our status bar because I wanted to save it for this one and show how we're going to make it fade. So on the normal lock screen, you have a status bar up top that starts out as white, and when you move to the emergency page, it turns into black. So the first thing we're going to do is come into our assets. We're going to place our lock screen status bar. Place this at 0, 0, so it'll be right on the top right where it needs to be. And then right below that, we're going to add our black status bar. Actually, going to place this on top. And we're going to fade it out to 0. So the way that it fades in is going to be dependent on the emergency call container. So we're going to add a fade animation. Call this fade in. And this will appear when we hit the emergency button tap. So we're going to have it fade into 100%. It's going to be pretty quick, a duration of 0.1 seconds, and we're going to delay it 0.15 seconds. The reason for that is we want to give it a little bit of time, almost to where the when our emergency panel is almost halfway through, then we're going to quickly fade it in and make it appear on top. So when we do this, fades in like that. Now we need to make it fade out when we hit this cancel button. So we're going to add another fade animation. This will be fade out. Based off of the emergency cancel button tap. fade out to 0, and we're going to use the same timing that we did before. So 0.1 second duration and 0.15 second delay. There we go. So that's it. In the next video, we're going to be creating the medical ID page that will appear when we tap on this medical ID button. That's going to incorporate a scroll view and appear from beneath this panel when we tap the button. Thanks for watching.